Global Banking Alliance for Women is a membership organization of private sector commercial banks globally who are committed to women's wealth creation.
Why do we need a women's market? Because women are half the world's population. Women are half of the world's consumers. Women are making 80-something% of purchasing decisions. And women are increasingly economically active in terms of entrepreneurship, owning between 1/4 and 1/3 of all the businesses around the world. So they need financial products and services. They are suppliers to corporations.
I think it is important to have a strategy for women, because it is, the way I view it is that it's a new segment, it's a defined segment that needs targeting. And whenever you're doing that, when a bank is doing that, regardless of what segment it is important to have a strategy in place so you know where you're coming from, where you are in terms of what you have, and where you want to go, and how you're going to get there.
The other point really for IFC is that we're a development institution, and what we've found is that when women become a productive part of the labor force or a productive part of the economy, this really drives growth and jobs in countries, and that's what the world needs today.
The GBA's key strength today are in its membership, in the knowledge of the individual banks. Most banks, when they want to grow today, they need to steal the clients from somebody else. If they were to focus on the women's market, in many, many countries in the world, there are many women who have never banked. And so it's a market there for the taking. It's about showing success. And success is what is bringing the members in. Success is what has allowed to increase the membership by 50% over the last year. Banks see the success and they join.
You know, our tagline is accelerating access, increasing impact. And there's such a power in convening and bringing people together who want to share.
Every year the Global Banking Alliance has an annual summit, and for 2011 we're really delighted that Westpac is the host this year. So we thought it would be a wonderful occasion to bring everybody to Sydney in Australia. So when everybody arrived on the first day, it's always a lovely way to bring them all together in a plenary session, and that's where we share what's going on as a visionary piece and what's global best practice around banking. So, and also we want our members to be able to showcase what they're doing.
When we started with GBA, we didn't have any special products for the women. Now we do have special products designed for the women through the experiences we've learned elsewhere. I'll give you an example. We do have a special deposit account for women where women groups come together to contribute. After that, we lend them out of their own savings, but we give them a little bit more, like 200%.
I think support of GBA is really very important for any bank launching itself into this market, because you'll have so many benchmarks, best practices to share, and you know, many banks have done this before. You can of course adapt to your own culture, to your own market, but it helps a lot.
For me, having Westpac this year as the summit host was a real big opportunity for us to share best practice. So the reason the Global Banking Alliance get a host bank each year to have the summit is that we want them to be able to showcase in their countries how much they do for women in their areas. So the gala dinner is a really important part of that showcasing, because they can invite their customers along, they can invite government officials, and their CEOs and their senior executives can get very much involved in ensuring that everybody is aware that this is something that the bank has absolutely vision for and is dedicated to ensuring that they take it in a strategy further into the future. We're very privileged in Australia to have Gail Kelly as our CEO. She is globally recognised for our brand, and she is one of the top CEOs in Australia.
Now, I would like, my vision for us is that this decade, 2010 to 2020, be the decade that we remember with a step change in momentum around this important issue of diversity and gender equity. Much like that decade of the late 60s, 70s, where momentum occurred around the world. You remember the women's rights movements around the world, where women stood up and said, you know what, we don't want to be forever cast in only the jobs that are somehow suitable for women. We want to play a role in education, in politics, in health, in sport. We want to be heard, have our voice heard. And so started to move in that direction. Brave, bold women. And as a result of that, brave, bold policies and laws came into being in order to support women in this goal. Another big thing, of course, was the pill. Remember that?
You know, when I first got involved a year ago, there were 19 members. Today there are 34. That's fantastic growth, you know, in its 11th year. But I think the key issue is numbers are really important here. So the larger the number of banks involved, the better. And I have a vision that, you know, we can get banks around the world to get together and do something really good for society as a whole, both, you know, within in individual localities that each bank's in, and then collectively around the globe for the global economy, which obviously is a great thing to do right now, but always actually.
So the GBA over the next 5 years has a huge opportunity to grow. We've grown already in the last 12 months from 19 member banks to 34, which is a huge growth when you think about that in a 12-month period. But we want to take that global, and we want to have a lot of banks involved. I mean, there's so many banks in the world. The vision for us going forward would be, let's have 150 banks involved in this, so that when you have a summit, it's all the banks coming together and sharing practice, so that we can ensure that women globally get access to finance and get the information and the education required to have sustainable, profitable futures. So how wonderful would that be if all the banks come together and do that? And that then would leverage the community in the sense that women ensure that the communities are well cared for. So it's really social responsibility, as far as I'm concerned, from banks, and the Global Banking Alliance can be the absolute vehicle to ensure that happens across the globe.
But there's some responsibility in being a member, and it's not just what you take out of this, but it's actually what you give back in. So ultimately, you know, we're looking for banks to be part of the communities that they're in, not just as an organisation that employs people and makes a profit, but actually a contributor to that community. You know, the size of the organisation is important, so growing the membership is a good thing. So all of us have got contacts with other banks. It's a good idea to use those contacts to bring more power to the overall organisation. This is a non-competitive issue, which is good for everybody.
We are looking at a common cause, and therefore we should share information.
The strengths of the GBA are diversity, and in that I'm talking about the different groups of people they bring together, people of different backgrounds, different levels of expertise and professions, and when all these people come together to cross-pollinate their ideas, they are becoming a world force, a global force in terms of creating best practice.
So what's important is knowing that we are a platform. So how can we be thought leaders? How can we take the collective knowledge of our members and bring that even to a wider audience, whether it's affecting government and policy, business practice? So that would be the nirvana, I think, for the Global Banking Alliance.
Our call to action is member gets member. We're asking all of our members, you love this Global Banking Alliance. When you think about it, it is a network. We want you to go back to your countries and talk to your colleagues in other banks and say, you need to be part of this. The more banks that are involved in this, the better. We've got to grow the Global Banking Alliance to be a larger organisation and get to the numbers that we need to ensure we become the voice globally around how can banks best look after women so they have those sustainable, profitable futures.